Thanks for tuning in to this rapid reaction of the college football rankings release. What we're going to do is take a look at everybody's favorite, Mr. Paul Finebaum.
Tell me this. What's your biggest takeaway from those rankings?
To me, Molly, it looks like the Big Ten schools, especially Indiana and Penn State, are being valued by their one-loss record as opposed to their schedule. The biggest beef is really Georgia. It is a common theme now, but they played the toughest schedule in the country, and they've lost to two teams that are ranked ahead of them. And I would maintain that Indiana, with the same schedule, would probably have 4 or 5 losses. They will play Ohio State this week, and I think that's great. Can't wait to see the game. But I just think Georgia is being punished because of the schedule in the league that they're in. And what it really means is they're in the playoffs, but they'll have to start on the road probably at one of those Big Ten schools, which I find to be ridiculous.
Yeah. I actually think that analysis is ridiculous. What is new? Paul didn't learn his lesson from last year when Michigan and Washington played for the national championship. And as far as I can tell, neither team is from the SEC. Correct? Yeah, I'm pretty positive. So, yeah, I don't know what. As a matter of fact, right, even now, both teams are. I know it's this year. Both are kind of in the Big Ten now, and the two teams that were beaten last year are now in the SEC. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that was last year, but the fact is I guess that just doesn't matter now. It's another year, and last year, yeah, that was just a blip. SEC is still, the be-all, end-all. So, yeah, Georgia, strength of schedule. Okay. We're in the year of the analytics. Boom. And look, there's a time and a place for analytics, and I get it, but that's all this is. This is an analytic analysis. That's all he did. He just showed you numbers. Okay, that's basically analytics. He's showing you numbers, strength of schedule. There you go. Are you watching the games, Paul? Maybe you don't have time to watch the games anymore. Are you actually watching? I don't think he is. There's no way he's watching these games and with a straight face is trying to tell you that Georgia should be, I don't know. Did he come up with a ranking where he thinks they should be? Maybe we'll find out.
I happen to agree with you, Paul, 100%. You and I have been on the same page with this all year long.
And, we're going to listen to Mad Dog's analysis, and I'm going to say this, Mad Dog. I'm one of your favorite fans. I grew up with you up in New Jersey. Listened to you for as long as I can remember when I was a kid. And sports talk radio, you're completely indebted forever for Mike and the Mad Dog, no question about it. But there's certain things Mad Dog doesn't know. And this is just it. Sorry. He's just, he's got his ups, he's got his downs, he's got his preferred sports. I'm sorry, but Mad Dog is, I don't really think he's very good at football compared to other sports, definitely baseball. He's really good at baseball, but football, this is just, come on. Let's hear what he has to say.
They are overrating this Big Ten. How is Penn State this high? I mean, you got to be kidding me. Penn State this high? Penn State, they have done. I had calls telling me this week on the radio, well, they beat Wisconsin.
Look at this. Look at that.
On the road. And Oregon struggled. What? They beat Wisconsin? This is what you're going to tell me now about Penn State, trying to make a case for Penn State? Indiana, we're going to find out about them this week. So let's.
Are you going to criticize Oregon? Because you're criticizing Penn State for beating Wisconsin. And by the way, they did it running away in the second half without their starting quarterback. Okay? Meanwhile, Oregon down to the wire in beating Wisconsin. But I'm not sure I hear anything about Oregon here. Penn State, we do. Oregon, no. Why? Because of Penn State's history? What does Penn State's history? And I'm definitely a critic of James Franklin. I know Penn State fans all over that are critics of James Franklin. Okay? But that's then, and this is now. We got to give them an opportunity to find out whether or not this is. Now, maybe Penn State loses to Minnesota on Saturday. And it's the same old Penn State. But at this point, they deserve the benefit of the doubt when we're talking about rankings. And right here, this is important. What we see and what I see from Penn State this year is football that is clearly better than I think I've ever seen under James Franklin. And I'm talking about the fact that they're more talented. They do not have a more talented roster personnel-wise. He's had a more talented one. I think it was, 2019. Doesn't matter. This is, without question, his best team.
Leave Indiana alone. If they ever beat Ohio State, I can justify it. I'm with you right now. They're not nearly as good as these SEC teams. Georgia's the second best team in the country. Okay, I don't care what anybody says. If
Georgia's the second best team in the country. Georgia. We're going to get into my side. My side's coming.
Beck plays like that, they're the best team. But right now, they're the second best team in the country. And two quickies. Miami should not be, the 8th, 9th? What is Miami? How is Miami 8th? They should have lost to Cal. They almost lost to Duke, and they got beat at Georgia Tech. How could they be 8th? Paul? And I'll tell you something else. I don't have a problem with all the conferences getting into the tournament, but why in the world should the ACC and the Big 12 get a top 4 seed and get a bye? Why is that the case? Let them play. Let them play. I don't understand that. What, if Georgia doesn't win their conference, they can't get a bye when they're the top 4 teams? That's ridiculous. I don't like that. Well, there's some things I don't like about it, but Miami 8th is too high.
Well, let me ask y'all a question. What the hell did Miami do? Look awful in practice, and there was cameras rolling and showed it? How did Alabama jump them?
By the way, Mad Dog, and we're going to get into this. We might even get into it right now, but we're going to get into this. Keep in mind what he just said about Miami barely beating this team or should have lost to this team.
Because you beat Mercer? What are we talking about here? How did that happen? And so I'm looking at it from that standpoint, and I'm saying, wait a minute, that's a huge question mark on that. Outside of that, Penn State, Indiana, I'm just looking at them. Indiana's got to show. Listen, I'm happy about that. So I think about those things as well. Georgia having a strength of schedule. I love the fact that Georgia has moved back into the mix because their strength of schedule is tops in the game. And when you consider the fact that they did that and they went and they handled their business against Tennessee.
Oh, one question for you. And this is going to be fascinating. Next Saturday at 7:30 on our networks here. If Texas loses at College Station, they can't play in the SEC championship game because they'd have 2 losses in the conference, and Texas A&M would be one of the top 2 teams. Could Texas be knocked out?
Yes.
They could. And Texas is the weak link in the SEC as far as the schedule and it's unfair on one level because they went to Michigan. They're the defending national champs. They were ranked very high. Michigan turned out to be a bad team, so they're not going to get credit for that. But the loss at A&M would be very costly. But back to the Georgia argument for a minute, Stephen A. They're not valuing Georgia.
Before we get back to the Georgia argument, so they just talked about strength of schedule being important. Now, for Texas, I guess it's unfair because, they just basically played the teams that were supposed to be better, and they're not. So let's not look at the schedule.
Georgia, because of having 2 losses, but they're also not valuing the win. I mean, they have a win over the committee's number 3 team in the country on the road, and they also don't factor in the.
Oh, so Georgia's got a win over the committee's number 3 team, who, by the way, hasn't played anybody except Georgia.
Wear and tear. I talked to Kirby Smart Friday night, and I understand he was politicking, but he was also telling the truth. He said, do you have any idea what it's like to play on the road at Texas, at Alabama, and at Ole Miss? Those are all top 10 teams. It takes a toll on your team, and that's as opposed to Penn State essentially playing nobody except Ohio State, and Indiana playing Charlotte and Florida International and Western Illinois. Right. It's a different schedule.
What's the love with Penn State? How did Penn State end up in there as a top 5 team?
I have no idea. They have not. They played West Virginia. They're not big non-conference.
These guys are taking absolutely nothing into effect. Nothing regarding, do you watch the games? Do you watch these teams? Everything about this conversation, numbers, analytics, schedule, who did they play? Where's the rankings of those teams that were played? That is not how you should be ranking teams. You should be ranking teams by watching. You have one job, that is to watch football games. And when you watch football games, if you seriously believe, after watching Georgia play this season, that they're supposed to be some top 4, top 5 ranked team, I don't know what you're doing, okay? Because those days are over. This is not yesterday's Georgia. This is last year's Georgia team would beat up this year's Georgia team, let alone the national championship Georgia teams, okay? They would win by 30 over this year's Georgia team, okay? So get over it. This is a completely different, I'm sorry, I know it's just 1 year, but it's a completely different era. This is the transfer portal era, okay? And all of the depth is gone from Georgia. There's no more, these guys are gone, or this guy is injured, and let's just put more, 5 stars and 4 stars in there, and the next wave is coming. That doesn't happen anymore. And it's beginning this year. But these guys, they're not getting that yet. So I'm going to do a quick thing here. We don't need to see his mug, do we? While I do this, I don't think you guys want to see that. Okay, so let's do a quick thing here, because they talked a little bit about the fact that you've got these just SEC and the schedule, and it's so tough, and it's just a wear and tear. Okay, you ready? Georgia schedule, the tough number whatever best schedule in college football. Okay, week 3, Georgia, Kentucky. Georgia wins 13-12. You know what Kentucky's record is? 4-6. You know what their SEC record is? 1-6. You know what the total yards were in the game? Kentucky 284 to 262. Georgia was minus 22 in yards against Kentucky. Week 3. You're wear and tear already? You guys are already brutalized? Week 3? Week 4. After getting off to a pretty bad start, that's an understatement. They come back, take the lead, lose to Alabama, 41-34. Once again, they get outgained by 28 yards. And here's a trend that's starting. Mr. Carson Beck, 3 interceptions. Week 5, Auburn. By the way, Auburn, 4-6, 1-5 SEC. They beat them 31-13. Well, that's pretty convincing, right? Total yardage, 381 to 337 plus 44. Big deal. Plus 44. Auburn. Says here, Auburn's 4-6, 1-5 in the SEC. Next up, week 6, Mississippi State. You know what their record is? 2-8, 0-6 in the SEC. What was the score? 41-31. They beat them by 10. 10. Mississippi State. Wear and tear already? Week 6 already? Week 7. Here comes the big win. You beat Texas, and everybody's on Georgia. Of course, Georgia. They're awesome. This is the beginning. You'll see. You know what? Did you watch the game? Go back and watch the game. And this is what's going on, because I'm watching the games. And that's why I've had this conclusion for the past month or so that I am completely not bought into Georgia being Georgia. And this is a definite start of it. Because if you watch the game, you remember that not only did Beck throw, 3 more interceptions, but there were 7 turnovers in the game. And Georgia had 285 yards of total offense to Texas's 259. So you basically had under 500 yards of total offense by both teams with 7 turnovers. Boy, that was a really well-played game. Boy, did they look like 2 of the best teams in the nation, or what? Week 8, Florida, cocktail party. Yeah, I think they were buzzing because, they won by 14. I mean, the point spread was about that, give or take. So, yeah, I guess that was a good win, right? I mean, look at the yardage, pretty good. They beat them up yardage-wise. Beck, 3 more interceptions. And again, did you watch the game? Go inside the game. What do you see? You see a fourth quarter situation with 5 minutes left in the game to the Florida Gators. What's their record? I don't have it here, but I know it's not good. I think they are, actually, I think Florida's 5-5. But the Gators are like just one step ahead of Kentucky, Auburn, and Mississippi State in the SEC. They're still like the average bottom, Florida. 5 minutes to go in the game, 2020. What's most important? No Graham Mertz, no Lagway, no DJ Lagway. Third string freshman quarterback, tie game. And this is the struggle Georgia is dealing with. This kid Warner, okay, right now, he's only had, 50 career passes to his name. Most of them were in this game. He has a 42% completion percentage, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions. This is the quarterback that's in the game because it's their third stringer. And again, this is not Alabama. This is not Oregon. This is not Ohio State. This is Florida, who may not even make a bowl this year. This is Florida, third string quarterback. And it's 20-20 with 5 minutes to go in the game. And Beck threw 3 more interceptions. This kid Warner's out there. And that's what Georgia needed in order to score 2 late touchdowns. I believe one might have been on defense. And Georgia wins. It looks a little bit more comfortable than it truly was. Week 9. What happens? Ole Miss. Hey, you're finally playing a good team again. There are 2 really good teams on this schedule. And I'm sorry, I just don't believe in Texas either. I don't think Texas is really good. I think if Texas does lose to Texas A&M, I think Texas should be out of the playoff situation. There's nothing special about Texas. Has not done anything special so far this year. They have not beaten anybody special. Now, maybe they will, but so far they haven't. So you have Ole Miss and Alabama. You didn't win either game. And Ole Miss, you lose 28-10. And by the way, that score could have been 45-10 if Georgia's defense didn't hold them to field goals instead of touchdowns. Ole Miss had a 152 yardage advantage on Georgia. 152. Isn't this the same Georgia team from what? I don't know how long ago was it? Might not have been that long. That they annihilated Ole Miss last year, 52-17. 52-17. And this year's team, minus 152 in yardage. And you're going to tell me that this Georgia team is, it's just like last year. It's just Georgia. It's Georgia. Same old Georgia. And then finally, Georgia has their best game of the season. But wait a second. How could they do that? How could they have their best game of the season in week 10? I thought it was a murderous schedule and it just wore you down. So how could your best game be your last game? That's why it's an excuse. Nobody is saying that, because I've said this myself, that this isn't the new way of having to rank teams and look at teams. They're going to have 2 losses. Hardly anyone's going to go undefeated anymore. If they do, it's probably going to be because of benefits of schedule and things of that nature. So I'm okay with that. But again, this is not the problem. The problem is not the fact that Georgia has 2 losses. The problem is the way Georgia has looked. This is why I said the same thing about Ohio State, Oregon. I know a lot of people believe Oregon and Ohio State, they're the 2 best teams, and they played that way. And then there's a little bit of a drop off. And I don't believe that. I believe Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, all these teams. You put them in, you put like 15 of these teams, 20 of these teams. And I'm also including Boise State, teams like that. Put them all, BYU, Colorado, put them all in a raffle bag and spit them out. And I don't know what would happen. Anything can happen. Anything can happen on any given week. And it wouldn't be like a shock. And it's happened that fast because just just a short while ago, if you were Georgia or Alabama, one of these dominant programs, Clemson, you could tell. You knew that they were just so far better than the rest. You knew you were dealing with a dynasty type of program. The dynasty is over at Georgia. They just don't know it yet. So that's going to wrap up my feeling on Georgia and whether or not they're the second best team in the country. Oh, please. Now, even Finebaum didn't say that. He allowed Mad Dog to come up with that nonsense. Not that I would think that Finebaum wouldn't be too far off. He might say like 4th or 5th in the country, but come on, man. Watch the games. Look, the way that these rankings too, they're all going to take care of themselves. Okay, you guys talked about Indiana and Ohio State. Well, they'll take care of themselves. If Indiana beats Ohio State, what are you going to do? You're going to have something to say. What you'll probably say is, well, that's because the Big Ten's terrible. It's down this year because Ohio State can't even beat Indiana. Now, we don't expect that to happen, but it's possible. Indiana could beat Ohio State. That is possible. That could happen. And the way that the Big Ten is, the way the rankings are, 4 of the top 5 of the Big Ten, we know that's not going to be the case. Because again, one of those teams is going to lose. And then this is why you have Mad Dog wants to know, I don't understand how Miami gets an automatic bid, how a conference gets an automatic bid. That's the reason. Because you can't have 4 teams from one conference, like the way if the season ended today, you would have 3 teams from the Big Ten getting a bye. Come on. And it used to be, see, they're saying that now because it is the Big Ten. But if it was a year or two ago and this was going on, you would have all SEC teams up there, and then I guess they wouldn't have anything to say. But that would be the case. If you had SEC teams, Big Ten teams, whatever the case may be, that's the reason that you have buys. And it's also important because those teams are playing within the conference like 80% of their games. So it is completely unfair. See, it's like Clemson a few years back when they were a dominant program. They were still a little bit of a dynasty. They had a dynasty going on there. And they were playing in the ACC, which wasn't very strong. So it was real easy for them. But you were going to penalize, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not sure I understand. I mean, just because they were in the ACC or just because Miami is in the ACC now. And let's go back to Miami barely beating Colorado or shouldn't have won this game or whatever Mad Dog was saying. I just went over this. How do you know Georgia's beating Florida if Mertz was healthy or even Lagway was healthy? How do you know? Florida has the football in the 4th quarter in a tie game with a number 3 quarterback who can't play. How do you know? You don't know. They got outgained by Kentucky in a 1-point game. They could have lost that game. So you want to point and pick. And again, I'm not talking about some top teams in the SEC. We're talking about the bottom teams in the SEC now that Georgia struggled with. Sorry, I don't care how good the SEC is. It ain't the NFL. Okay? So if you are struggling against the bottom teams in your conference and you have 2 losses on the season, don't cry to me that you're in the playoffs. And this, again, will all take care of itself. And I'm not talking about the Big Ten stuff. What I'm saying is we will wait and see. Okay? Let's remember this. We will wait and see. Let's see what Georgia does. Again, even though I think Georgia is more than capable of winning a couple of games in the playoffs because they're talented enough to do it. I just don't see it happening. And I'm willing to predict that it won't because I'm behind Ole Miss. I'm not SEC bashing. In the Ourlads poll, I've got Ole Miss as the 2nd best team in the country. I got them at number 2. Some of the guys that are some of our pollsters don't even have, I believe, Ole Miss in their rankings. And I have them number 2. Why? Not because they're in the SEC or not because they're in the Big Ten. You know what I'm saying? Wink. But because of the fact that I watch the games. I don't care Ole Miss has 2 losses. I watch the games and I see the talent. And I believe they are one of the best teams, if not the best team in college football. And I believe we're going to find that out in the playoffs. And we'll see if they could survive here in the next couple of weeks, which I don't think they're going to have a problem doing. Maybe I'm wrong. Remember, these are interesting things that we're all going to be dealing with here. I mean, will Ole Miss lose to a team they're not supposed to? Florida or their rivals, Mississippi State. And once again, Lane Kiffin can't get his very talented team to the playoffs. Or James Franklin chokes it up again as they lose to Minnesota. Because this is it. They got Maryland next week at home. So if you beat Minnesota, it's over. Penn State's going to the playoffs. So will they choke? Well, let's find out. Maybe they will. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to defend James Franklin and Lane Kiffin. But all I'm doing is I'm looking this year at the teams I am watching, and I do believe that this Penn State team is a worthy playoff contender, okay, that can beat. And if Penn State played Georgia in the first round of the playoffs, I believe Penn State's going to beat Georgia. Call me silly. I don't know what you think. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think I am off my rocker. Let me know if you agree with me, that you think that Georgia, the days of Georgia's, this dominating program, this juggernaut, if those days are over. And you want to give all the excuses to Carson Beck and the reasons why he's not playing well. Hey, this is it. This is what you're going to face in the NFL. You can go to the NFL and you're not going to have all these blue chip play. Oh, he doesn't have McConkey. He doesn't have Bowers. Hey, welcome to the NFL next year. These kids, they're experiencing it. Every kid experiences it. Every top first round, top 5 quarterback experiences the difference. Because you're a top 5 quarterback, you're not going to a football team. Nobody's got not many quarterbacks had the advantages of going from college to the NFL and landing with Andy Reid. Not many Patrick Mahomes out there. We know his talent is off the charts, but the combination makes it just 3-time Super Bowl championship-ish. Look, it's going to be a lot of fun. I love this. I've been waiting for this for so long. I think we all have, or at least some of us have, the playoffs I'm talking about, the real playoffs I'm talking about. I've said this also ever since this was official, that we were going to have playoffs, that this is going to be the biggest sporting event to come around in years. And as we get closer, and we're still like a month away. So as we get closer and closer every week, we're going to have more upsets this week and more upsets the next week, and the rankings are going to go. Now that Boise all of a sudden has made some noise and has entered into the top 4 because they outranked BYU and Colorado and so forth. And we still have to figure out what the heck's going on in the Big 12 to begin with. And look, by the way, the Big 12, one of the mega conferences, did not get that automatic. Okay. And if you don't think Miami is talented enough to beat Georgia, once again, watch some football games, will you please? Because Miami's one of those teams that, yes, are they going to struggle to beat this, that, and the other thing? Yes. But put them up in a big game situation this year with the talent that they have, and it's going to be a fourth quarter, down to the last series or two type of game. And right now, the way things are going this year, you want Beck or Ward in a big game situation. It's different. It's a different time. It's a different era. These guys, unfortunately, they just haven't figured it out yet. Check out the Ourlads Insider too. Keep an eye on that. We've got a link in the description. What is that? First off, you don't have to worry about ads. It's like its own little ad blocker. So if you're really frustrated when you're surfing around the Ourlads website, you got to deal with all those ads. You pay for the subscription, gone. 1 year subscription, one-time payment, gone. Awesome. But that's just like a little bit of a perk. What's really awesome is that you can be real busy working, and let's say you're in a fantasy league. It's real important for you to get this fantasy information, which is why you check out Ourlads. Awesome depth charts, best in the business. You love the fact that they're going to update the depth chart and let you know whether a player is playing because somebody's injured, transaction, whatever the case may be. This is important information you need. Maybe you need it because you need to place a bet on the game later that night. Maybe it's a Thursday night game or a Monday night game and you're at work. You can't get this information. You're not going to be able to get it till you get home, and the window's is close and you get home. You got to deal with, there's dinner on the table and you got to take the dog out and you got to teach the kid. It's just madness. So you don't have a lot of time here. But what you get from Ourlads is you get the email alert that tells you when something has happened. So this way, you don't have to go searching for it yourself. All right. This is part of the Ourlads Insider. It also has this AI thing that is so like 2024 that I have no idea what the heck it is. I'm old. What can I tell you? Yep, I'm old. But it's also really good because, especially for the new age, the analytics age, so to speak, the younger generation that really likes to go on a lot of this information. Again, whatever you want to call it, analytics, computer, whatever. The fact of the matter is, it's a nice little format, software that lets you in on a lot of different scenarios that could take place. Same thing, gambling, let you know where the advantages are, especially if player A or player B is not available. Gives you the percentages of wins and things of that nature. So that's all Ourlads Insider. It's involved into this entire package. I think it's like $25 for the year, one-time payment, done with. And again, what I love about it, no ads. So check it out, Ourlads Insider. We'll have the link in the description, and we'll be back again talking college football. We'll do it again next week, rankings release. And anytime they want to go ahead and keep talking about the SEC in Georgia and how great the Bulldogs are, we'll be here to rebut that. And also check out all the great videos for scouting, because I know we're not at that point yet to talk about the 2025 draft, but this is Ourlads. This is a scouting service. And I'm sure you're already seeing Dave Syvertson and John Cooper are putting videos out for the 2025 draft. And I'm even going to be putting videos out, not just for the draft, but also just in college football in general, because there's so many teams and so many players, and you just don't have time to check it all out for yourself. So that's going to be my job, and it has been. I've done a lot of research over the past several weeks to kind of get ready for these videos, and I'm going to be putting them out soon to kind of, let you know what's out there personnel-wise in college football. Take a look at some of the top freshmen, top sophomores, the players that could be out there that we'll be talking about in the 2026 or 2027 draft. So look out for those. And again, want to thank everybody for tuning into this video here on the Ourlads Football Network, the Ourlads Football YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, share. We'll see you next time.